We call the meeting to order to review and discuss our budget for the year 2018, 2019.
Good evening. As we all know, we've got some fantastic news from the state legislature, from the governor, and we will operate in fiscal year 19 for the first time since 2003 with a fully funded budget from the state level. So QBE will be fully funded, which for our school system resulted in the restoration of about $1.9 million to the general fund. And so that was a great surprise as we were working through through our budget process, and we have prepared the budget for your review. And Erica is actually, who is our executive financial manager, will walk us through the presentation, and then we'll all entertain questions and try to put together the best budget that we possibly can in terms of any kinds of adjustments that might need to be made.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm going to start with a brief presentation, just some highlights of the budget that we have prepared for you this evening. So first I want to talk about, can you guys hear me? I feel like, okay. First I want to talk about state revenue. As Ms. Fury just mentioned, we did receive the news just a few weeks ago about our austerity reduction and how we will no longer have that. So you'll see on the presentation here that does show zero for 2019. Overall, we do have an increase in our state revenue of about $1.4 million. You will see that our local fair share did increase and our equalization did decrease, and that is a result of our tax digest improving. And as our tax digest continues to improve, you will continue to see that same trend going forward. On the next slide, I have here our 10-year M&O tax digest, and these are our actual numbers through FY18 as far as the digest goes. Of course, our FY18 actual revenue number is not available as of yet because we're still in FY18, but these are the actual digest numbers and the actual revenue up through 17. For the budget that we prepared for your review this evening, we did look at the trends over the last 10 years to try to project a revenue number for 19 so that we could prepare a more accurate budget. So based on the numbers that you see here, we did project a revenue increase for FY19. And you'll see that when you get to the budget document. So some of the major increases in our budget for FY19 are going to be mainly salary and benefits. The biggest increase is going to be for our TRS contributions. That rate did increase from 16.81 to 20.9. The second increase, we are proposing a 1% permanent pay raise for all employees. And also, we are proposing a 0.5% increase in our 403B contributions for our TRS eligible employees. On the next slide, you'll see our general fund budgeted expenditures by category, and you can see that the largest portion of our budget is for salary and benefits. That represents about 87% of our budget. The next largest portion, which would be textbooks and supplies, with about 4.3% of the budget. And if you follow on to the next slide, this slide breaks down our salary and benefits by function. So the 87% that you saw on the first pie chart is now broken down by function so that you can see how our salaries are classified, as far as if they're instruction, so that would be teachers or parapros, or technology specialists or counselors, and so on and so forth. So this is how our salaries are broken down by function. And again, the largest portion here goes to instruction, which is our teachers and paras and counselors and technology specialists. On the next slide, we have a comparison of our expenditures from FY17 compared to the statewide expenditures for FY17. In the category of instruction, we did spend more than the state in that category, which is always a good thing. And we spent less in our admin categories, such as general administration and school administration. We spent less than the state in those categories for FY17. Next, we have a comparison of our per pupil expenditures compared to surrounding districts, and as well as the millage rates for FY17. For FY17, Newton County, our per pupil expenditure was about $9,100. In FY16, our per pupil expenditure was about $8,800. So we did see an increase in our per pupil expenditures from FY16 to FY17. Newton is at the top, is listed at the top, but after Newton, they're in rank order. So next, we come to our charts that we want to propose for your review. We have 5 charts, I believe it is, and they have different options. So the first option is no adjustment, so there will be no pay increases in Chart A, no increases to a 403B contribution in Chart A as well. On Chart B, it includes the 1% permanent pay increase as well as the 0.5% increase in the 403B contribution for TRS eligible employees. A 1% permanent pay raise would cost approximately $1.3 million, and the 0.5% increase would cost about $600,000. On Chart C, this chart includes a 1.5% permanent pay raise for all employees, as well as a 0.5% increase in the 403B contribution. So the 1.5% pay raise would cost about $1.9 million. On Chart D,
On Chart C, shouldn't the, with that, shouldn't it be different?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Okay, I see what, okay, never mind.
Just to clarify, Chart C was originally, it's not the same Chart C that we had originally in our previous information.
Yeah, so we had a request that we did not look at or examine the difference between 1 and 2. And so the request was to look at what it would be for 1.5. So what you have is, you still have the charts, the original charts, you just have an additional one added in. That's the 1.5. So the Chart C is 1.5, and then Chart D is 2%. And then Chart E was the
They're
regular
going in the
chart.
numerical order,
Yeah.
just not in the same order that we had.
On the charts, yeah.
Okay.
So we just added another opportunity to look at a 0.5% in between the 1 and the 2, because we hadn't considered that to begin with.
When we get finished, can I give another option?
Sure, I mean, that's why we're here, listening to options.
Okay, so I think we were on chart D,
Yes.
which is a 2% permanent pay raise and a 0.5% increase in the 403B employer contribution for TRS eligible employees. And the last chart is chart E, which is also a 2% permanent pay raise, but it also includes a 1% increase in the 403B contribution for TRS eligible employees.
Just to clarify, the 1% would fully restore the 403B to pre-recession contribution level. So that's the goal, to get there, if not this year, sometime soon, another year or so.
So that's the overview of the general fund budget. I do have a couple of more slides in here that will address the capital projects budget. The first one shows our bond debt that we currently have outstanding. It goes through 2025. We have 2 bonds outstanding. So you'll see here the principal and interest payments by fiscal year. And we do use, currently use SPOS funds to pay these bonds. And the last slide shows the projects that we would like to propose for FY19 using our SPOS dollars. And we can go over that a little bit more in detail once we go through the detail line budget. So that is the overview of our budget. Behind there, we do have the detail line item budget, and at this time, we will take any questions that you all may have about anything in the budget.
Questions of anyone?
Yeah, can I start on the charts, the first chart, chart A,
Sure.
just to understand when you go into your proposed 2018, 2019, 1920, 2021 projections, you project increases in your revenues and of course decreases in your beginning fund balance. So I get that, but the expenditures are not, they stop after 1 year. So what's your thought?
If we have information about, say, TRS increases or health insurance increases, we will add that in, but currently we do not have any information about any increases regarding those things. We don't include any pay raises in those numbers, and we would still do step increases, but the way that our staff is, it's kind of a net amount because you have staff leaving and then you may hire in at a lower rate, so it doesn't really equate to much of a, if there is a change in the dollar amount. So this would assume that all of our other expenditures will remain the same.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have some based on the charts that we were given a couple, 3 days ago. Let me go,
On the line by line?
yes.
Okay. So we just know where to look.
I don't know how it relates to here.
It should be-
It's the same.
It's the same.
Same. Let me see. Page, these are my notes, page 213,
I'm sorry, I can't see.
Function 2213,
page 2.
page 2. This is, yes, it's a new function code, yes.
And my question is because it's new, is that taken from a different area?
The state had us assign a new function code 2213, and so anything that fell under 2213 that was originally in a different function code now has to go under 2213. So we had to move it from one place to put it under its new appropriate function code.
And my concern is, when we look over the budget, we become stuck on what we did last year. And if we make a change like this and get a new function code, then we ought to know, from my perspective, what function codes were impacted, so we have a better understanding. of what-
It was 2210. Though the expenditures that are listed in 2213 came from 2210.
Okay. But how would I know that when I pick up this and say, review the budget? I won't know that, so it causes unnecessary concern. If I had a reference that this was impacted, I'll just look over the drawing. And page 1, however long you have this, in the, yes, the old sheet, page 1. You have, however long is a 51 million number, 02356. But if you go to, I believe, line 1 versus page 5, line 1, you have 50 million. Is that a typo, or did we lose anything?
Line on page,
5,
on page 5, lines 1, 2, and 3 are combined on page 1.
okay. That's, okay. Well, see here, is that a new part that go in onto line 1? It's additional numbers, right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
So it's just taking this number here that you see
Uh-huh.
and pulling it out so you can see more closely what each of those areas are in the budget. But it's still the same number. It just breaks them apart into these items.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not making my point clear, but how would I know that?
Because it says it here. Right there, it tells you what it is, and then over here, it tells you the same thing. TABT, automobile tax,
Okay,
so on and so forth.
okay. I'll just have to take that description of the same thing then. Okay, let me try it again. You see, I went line by line.
That's good, well, there's nothing wrong with going line by line.
Uh,
Try to clear up any
Page
questions.
7, line 30. I guess this is what we referred to before. Is an additional head count or what?
Darren, that's you, Rise. No, line
Which
30 on
number?
page 7.
30.
It's the evening sessions.
Oh, yeah, we implemented this year, second semester, after-school sessions, and we're paying teachers to come in by hour to do after-school work with some of the alternative school kids. That, we just put that in a line item this year. It came out of just our general staff budget last year.
This has got anything to do with the additionals that you add, head count adding this year?
The
Next year?
additional staff members,
You-
those people would be daytime staff members, but they may also work in the afternoon. Right now, we're using, it's like extra work for them. They're coming in, it's the same people that work during the day. So the additional staff we're asking for is to expand the program and handle more volunteers to come in.
Okay, thank you. And page 32, line 26.
Was there a question? Yeah?
Well, that's,
To replace two vehicles, two 1995.
So the-
One with 224,000 miles, one with 199,000 miles.
that, just for future reference, if you said vehicle replacement, I would understand that. So I've accused you of buying 2 new vehicles, you didn't need it.
No, don't do that.
So we should have added replacement here. Gotcha.
Okay. That's it for now. Oh, so can I make my final and most important suggestion here on the chart? I don't know what you call this, E, I won't go to L. That we increase the employee pay increase to 2.5%, and maintain the 0.5% for the full 3B.
We can certainly look at it. But I don't know what the ending fund balance will
It
be.
won't change anything, it's just moving into a different part of it.
No, we'll change it,
Jay,
yeah. It would increase that number. And that, the decrease won't equal the same amount as the increase, so. And, you know, just for the record, $5.7 million left in the bank is probably a little risky, but we'll certainly prepare a separate chart that we can all look at.
The recommendation is 7 to 9. Is that correct?
It's 7%, yeah.
7%.
2008, 7.
It won't change the projected ending fund balance for 23 because you got the same amount in.
Okay, well, we'll
It
create
will.
another chart and look at it.
It will change the ending fund balance because it'll go 2.5, is that what you said?
Yes, and you're gonna drop this down to 0.5.
The numbers are not the same.
The numbers aren't the
So
same,
it
though.
will change.
You're looking at another 750 approximately thousand for every
750,000,
5.5% we go up. And then if we drop that down to 1.5, you're only, I mean, to 0.5, that number is smaller. So,
It'll be half of that one.
Roughly,
Yeah, drop
Yeah.
our end of fund down to the low, 6.
yeah. Well, and you
You're
have
talking
to,
$600,000 too.
but you also have to consider that it's, that 2.5% is not just for next year, so it's carried over the next year.
I understand
And the
that.
next year, so it multiplies for each year. So you're not really adding the money only one time, you're adding it for each of those subsequent years.
Continuously.
Yeah, but we'll look at it and we'll share it. It's, you know, no harm to look at it, see what we get. I don't have a problem with that. Do you,
No.
Mr. Chair?
I don't have a problem with it at all. Any other questions or concerns?
I have concerns.
Mr. Becker?
Okay, so my concern is, and I appreciate the options and stuff on the charts, I always appreciate options. My concern is the more we increase numbers, and, we need to keep in mind that it took years for a governor to give money back.
Yes.
And so, and this is his last year,
Yeah.
which may be the reason why he's doing it anyway. And so we will start off next year with a new governor. And everybody always during their campaign heightens the importance of education and they're for public education and stuff. But yet again, it took years for that money to be given back to school systems. And so we don't know that it won't take years again. We don't know that this will be a continuation. And so it may be years again. However, some of these numbers are continuations.
They're continuation of the 1.9. Yes.
Absolutely. So
Yep.
we have to be mindful of that, because I don't want to end in the situation of when I first got on the board and there was a rift. So,
And Ms. Henderson Baker is very, very accurate. As I stated, the austerity reductions started in 2003, and to the district, total is, I think, about $110 or $112 million in total loss for 2003. I mean, that's a lot of money that we earned that we did not receive, and those are things that I always weigh on my mind. You know, that's why the budget is, you project and you try to look forward as far as you can, but it's still just that, it's still projections, and
Right.
you gotta wait to see what the legislature does, and you are absolutely right, depending upon who gets there, they could set them right back into motion.
And you have to think about the fact that legislation, half of them are being reelected or running again as well, which again, may be the reason why the money is being placed in there. And so we're talking about 2003, and I can't keep stressing years. And so I just don't want to get overexcited about, oh, we finally got our money back, and do some things that can be detrimental in the future.
Agreed.
I'm very cognizant of what you're saying, Ms. Baker. And I'm also very cognizant of the fact that we have deprived our teachers of a fair wage over the years during that same period. So we're in better shape today, financially, than we have been in 8 years. So I think we owe our teachers whatever amount we can afford, whenever we can afford it. And I'm convinced, this is why I recommended 2.5, that we're in better shape today than we've ever been. And I'm very cognizant of the political aspects of it. But I think our teachers will support this, and I believe our budget process will support what I recommend.
Mr. Johnson, you said a key phrase in there, because I didn't say I was against any of the charts now. So, but you said a key phrase, we owe whatever we can afford. And we have to keep in mind, we have to be accountable, and we have to be financially, responsible towards the district overall.
And I'm in agreement with that.
Indeed, and you also have to not forget the amount of dollars that you have reinvested, because the board, and I was around a long time ago when we went through this recession, and I watched salaries remain stagnant. I had the same issue as everybody in this room and our teachers and all of our staff members. And so what the board said at that time was that we would, as money became available and the budget could support it, that we would begin to restore. And you have kept that promise, and you started it as soon as the money became available, and you keep your promise further, because when the digest finally comes in, and if it is over and beyond what we budget, we then come back and meet in November and then reappropriate those funds. And in every case, they have gone back to teachers' salaries, and not just teachers, but everybody in the whole school system salaries. And so I just like to remind you, as a board, that you have made a promise and you kept a promise. And you have restored more than $25 million worth of expense that must be sustained from year to year. So it's not as if nothing has been done. It is very deliberate, and we remain in a position to be able to make recommendations to increase salary and support benefits because of the judicious way that we have gone through the budget. And I just believe slow and steady wins the race. So I'd rather be slow, steady, and deliberate, and do it for a longer period of time than everything all at one time and then suddenly start retracting. And so, and I have met with, and Sherry Davis will tell you, in our school chats, I go over the budget with all of the teachers who attend, and that's one of the things that we talk about, is the amount of expense that's been added back to the budget permanently, and then the amount of expense that was a one-time expense, so that they can be reminded of how the board made a promise and then kept a promise. And that's actually what I said. Promise made, promise kept.
Question for you. Can you remind me where we're at in our salary with teachers and employees?
Absolutely.
And how much if we were back to where we were supposed to have been?
Yeah, so when we commissioned a salary study, what we decided at that time was that we would work to restore our staff members to where they would have been on the salary chart had there not been a recession. And you accomplished and exceeded that goal with the fiscal year budget we're in right now. So you have met and exceeded that goal.
So this, if we were to increase this 1%, this would be in addition to where
Yes.
they would have normally been
Yes.
if there had been no
Yes.
recession?
They are actually making, sorry, Ms. Johnson.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Pardon me. They're actually, if you go back and look at that chart and you compare, our staff members are making more, which was the goal, than they would have been had nothing happened. So we've.
Had we been just going the same pace year after year,
Yes,
year
yes,
after year?
yes,
Gotcha.
you've made a
Okay,
significant.
I thought that was,
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check to make sure
Yes,
that's,
we've
my thoughts were
met
correct.
and exceeded.
But I think we were doing ourselves a disservice if we don't put emphasis on the fact that Newton County pay their teachers less than most of our surrounding counties. And we are embedded by the process of doing an excellent job training our teachers and our turnover rate. We have to consider that when we are doing this. It's important. We don't see a dollar figure to that, but we know that is an expense associated with our high turnover rate and the problem that we talk about all the time. We can't recruit. We need incentives to recruit. So my efforts here take all of that in consideration. And just to say it's going to impact us 3 years, I mean, that's a given. I was here doing this process and said some good things and bad things too when we've been going through for the past 11 years over this budget. So I have made some recommendations that wasn't too good, but and I will continue to make some that won't be too good.
Human beings.
But it won't be because of lack of effort and
Nope.
determination
Nope.
that our teachers need a 2.5 raise increase.
Yeah. And we'll certainly put a chart together to see what that looks like and share it with the board so that we can have so you can see what the implications might be.
And I'm very confident that, as we've done in the past, that this board will work diligently in trying to make sure we are fair and give the teachers and the staff a raise that they so rightfully deserve, but in the same sense, being financial, frugal, making sure we don't overspend and find ourselves in positions like we were years ago, what we had to deal with.
Yeah. Yes, and I don't want to do that.
So I know, I'm very confident the board will accomplish the things that we need to do.
We will.
Mr. Johnson mentioned that we underpay our staff compared to neighboring counties. Do we have, does someone have that information? Just so we put our eyes on it?
We don't. They do those surveys once a year, so the last information that I really have is for last school year. But we definitely are not at the top, and if you look at the metro areas, we are below the metro areas, but in terms of surrounding districts, we do fare about even with some of the ones that are surrounding, just not the larger metro districts.
And we didn't always. I mean, we were
Right.
thousands of dollars behind.
I
And so,
wouldn't count the metro areas
Yeah.
because, yeah.
But that's what I was gonna say, if looking at that, we need to look at the tax revenue, what they bring in.
yeah.
Because if they're bringing in a whole lot more than we are, we can't pay that.
Right.
I mean, that's just seem the reason. So if we had those numbers of what their tax revenue is, that would kind of give us an idea of where we really stand.
Let's see what we can pull together.
Any other questions? Any other matters of interest? Having none, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cox, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you.